It all started on a rainy Friday evening in late March. I had just returned from a long day at work, dragging my feet across the kitchen floor of my two-bedroom apartment in Austin, Texas. The air smelled faintly of leftover takeout, and the rain tapping against the windows brought a strange sense of comfort. I had been planning this weekend for weeks. No phone calls, no work emails, and definitely no visitors. It was supposed to be my personal retreat. I live alone, mostly by choice. After years of shared college dorms, noisy roommates, and living under my parents' roof, I needed my own space. That's not to say I don't enjoy company, especially family. But after working 60-hour weeks, a little solitude can feel like gold. So, when I heard the sudden knock on the door, just as I had changed into my oversized hoodie and pajama pants, my heart sank a little. I hesitated, considering ignoring it. But the knock came again, faster this time, more urgent. I sighed, dragging myself to the door, and opened it to see my older brother, Nick, standing in the rain with a sheepish grin and a duffel bag. "Hey, Emma," he said. "Mind if I crash for a night or two?" Nick was always the charming one in the family. 2 years older than me, he had a way of walking into a room and making everyone feel like they'd known him forever. But he also had a talent for showing up at the most inconvenient times. "You're soaked," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "What happened?" He shrugged. "Long story. You got time?" I looked at him, then at my couch, which had a cozy blanket and a mug of hot chocolate waiting for me. My no-visitors weekend was already slipping away. "Fine," I said with a sigh. "You can stay. But just for a night, okay?" "Deal," Nick said, tossing his wet bag by the door. "You're a lifesaver." Over the next hour, Nick filled me in on how his latest relationship had imploded, again, and how he needed a place to clear his head. I half-listened, nodding at the right times, but my mind was elsewhere. I had a surprise plan that weekend, one I had never told anyone about, not even Nick. For months, I had been chatting with someone online, Tyler. We met through a virtual book club, of all places. Tyler was everything I wasn't used to. Calm, thoughtful, and really good at listening. We had formed a connection that went deeper than I expected, and after 5 months of late-night phone calls and video chats, we had finally decided to meet. In person. At my place. Tomorrow. That was the plan, until Nick showed up unannounced. I tried to hint at it. "So, any idea how long you'll be staying?" "2 days tops," he said with a mouthful of popcorn. "You know, just until I figure things out." "Great. Just long enough to ruin my weekend." I spent the rest of the evening juggling my disappointment and my brother's oblivious chatter. At some point, he dozed off on the couch, snoring like a chainsaw. I tiptoed to my room, sent a text to Tyler. "Change of plans." My brother showed up. "Might have to reschedule our meeting."
So sorry.
He replied almost instantly, "It's okay. Want to go for a walk tomorrow instead? Somewhere public." That's why I liked him. Always understanding. The next morning, I managed to sneak out while Nick was still sleeping. I met Tyler at Zilker Park. It was surreal seeing him in person. He looked just like his pictures, tall, with kind brown eyes and a gentle smile. We spent hours walking, talking, laughing. It felt natural. Real. When he reached out to hold my hand, I let him. By the time I returned home, it was mid-afternoon. Nick was in the kitchen, shirtless, making pancakes. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Just out," I replied, trying not to smile too much. He raised an eyebrow. "With someone?" "Nope," I lied. "Just needed some fresh air." I should have told him. I really should have. But I knew what would come next. The teasing, the questions, the overprotective big brother routine. And I wanted to keep this new thing, this fragile beginning with Tyler, just for myself a little longer. Later that evening, Tyler texted me again. "I had an amazing time. Want to hang out again? I can bring over that book you mentioned." "Sure," I texted back. "Come over around 6. But be discreet. My brother's still here." It was risky, but I figured we could keep things casual, just a short visit. Nick usually watched basketball on Saturday nights, and when he was locked into a game, a marching band could storm through the apartment and he wouldn't notice. At 6:15 p.m., Tyler knocked softly. I quickly let him in and led him to my room. We weren't doing anything inappropriate, just sitting on the bed, reading side by side, occasionally laughing. But the atmosphere had shifted. There was a closeness between us, an unspoken energy. I think we both felt it. That's when it happened. The door to my room flew open. Nick stood there, holding a bowl of popcorn, frozen mid-step. "Oh," he said, eyes darting between us. "Well, this is unexpected." I jumped up. "Nick, what the heck? Ever heard of knocking?" "I was looking for you," he said, not moving. "You weren't in the living room, and who's this?" Tyler stood up, awkwardly extending a hand. "Hi, I'm Tyler." Nick didn't take it. "You brought a guy over while I'm here?" "In secret." "It wasn't like that." I snapped. "You wouldn't understand. You always make a big deal out of everything." "Well, forgive me for being surprised when I walk in on my little sister and some stranger in her bedroom." "He's not a stranger," I said sharply. "He's my friend. And you walked in at the worst possible moment." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Tyler cleared his throat. "Maybe I should go." "No," I said quickly. "You don't have to." But he was already heading toward the door. "It's fine. Really. We can talk later." Once he left, Nick and I stared at each other. "I'm sorry," he said eventually. "I didn't mean to mess things up." "You didn't mess anything up," I said quietly. "You just caught me off guard. I should have knocked." "You think?" We both laughed a little. Tension eased, but the moment lingered. He sat down on the edge of the bed. "Look, Emma," he said. "You're allowed to have your own life. I get that. But you're my sister. I worry about you. I know. And I love that you care. But sometimes you have to let me handle things on my own." He nodded slowly. "So is he serious? This Tyler guy?" I thought about it. "I think he could be." "Yeah." Nick smiled. "Then I hope he knows how lucky he is." The next morning, Nick packed his things. Before leaving, he gave me a hug and said, "Tell Tyler I'm not always a jerk. Just sometimes." "I'll let him know." After Nick left, I texted Tyler, asking if he'd like to come over again. This time, no awkward surprises. He came by that evening. We really talked about everything. Family, timing, boundaries. We took it slow after that, but over time, things deepened. It became our favorite story to tell, how my brother walked in at the worst possible moment, but somehow, it turned out to be exactly what we needed to move forward. Because sometimes, even the most awkward interruptions have a way of clearing the path for something real.